biggest Super Bowl ever. I think I say this a lot. Very, very not interested in this game. I'm not planning on making my Sunday night around it.
I think there's only two ways it's going to go. It's either going to be, 49 to 38, or a shocking defensive battle. I don't think it's going to be, 24 to 16. I don't think that's going to happen. Something's going to break.
Did you see that ESPN's doing that huge documentary about Al Davis versus Pete Rozelle?
I'm not going to watch it.
It's one of their 30 for 30s.
Who won? Who wins?
Well, it's funny because to me, I forget that there's like a generation of people who are like, what? Who? But
Britt, I would say that right now, no one, zero, nada, nobody under 40 have ever heard of Al Davis. They have no idea, and they don't care. And so you got to start dealing with this shit. You
really do. Well, I've often said, and I make the comparison all the time with Vince McMahon. Like Vince McMahon in 2021 is like Al Davis was in 2004, 2005. He wasn't the 1983 Al Davis. He wasn't that guy. And Vince McMahon in 2021 is not the 1986 Vince McMahon. He just is not. Yeah. And it's well documented.
All right, here's a name, a sports name that I'd say at this point, nobody under 60 will know. Charles Finley.
Yeah,
Charles O. Finley. And by the way, who by definition would be one of the most influential owners of baseball ever, because he changed the game the way players were paid, and he learned how to abuse players in public long before Steinbrenner.
In terms of marketing and stuff like that. Yeah. What could Charlie O'Finley have done with fucking social media? Holy cow, that would have been crazy. Yeah. All right, okay. I'm shared. Find it and share it.
All right, I'm looking. You know what I hate? Here's what I hate. I hate the little light on your dashboard that comes up that refers to tire inflation. It comes on, and you never know if it's something wrong with a tire or it's because it got cold out and the fucking thing went down by, I hate it. And you have to get it goddamn looked at every time. I hate it.
It is a pain in the ass, especially in the wintertime for sure.
So guess where I'm going to be at 3:00. Hey, I got an idea. This will be funny. Let's do jokes about what would an Apple car be like.
They're gonna make you dead.
Wasn't that wait? I thought they can recycle the old Microsoft car from 10 years ago. Remember
having to restart it and reboot it and all that other shit that they used to do. That was great. If Microsoft manufactured vehicles. Yeah. I still love you.
Oh, I think we're good.
All right.
I think we're doing okay. Yes, see you. You can see me. There we go. A little adjustment there, a little camera adjustment. And we're good. Ready?
Ready.
All right. It's another Brad and Britt cast, our last one for this week. Thanks. Live here in the 1:30 Eastern hour on Thursday. And can I start with just the most pointless, irrelevant nothing?
Why would today be different than any other day?
All right. Well, I've noticed, and remember this whole concept of comparing Trump to Hitler-like. Remember at the beginning of Trump's presidency, not allowed to do it, inappropriate, doesn't match up, can't do it, can't go there, you lose, Godwin's law, blah, blah. Okay.
All that shit, yeah.
I'm glad to say that here on the Brad and Britt cast, we never bought that shit.
No.
We have thought for a long time that, yes, it could happen here. It could happen here. With that in mind, with authoritarianism in mind, I wonder why there hasn't been more comedy, comparisons, obvious cross anything with Kevin McCarthy and Joe McCarthy. You notice they've stayed away from that? Haven't seen it. I believe that there is a direct line between Joe McCarthy and Kevin McCarthy. And it's not hard at all. It's not even 6 degrees of separation. You have Joe McCarthy sitting next to Roy Cohn, his lawyer, lying about communists in the State Department, destroying lives, ruining reputations, just going the lowest of the low, ripping apart the country. And Joe McCarthy was a Republican, and the Republican Party was afraid of him. They would not stand up to him until they finally did when it was safe to do so after other entities like the Army Secretary and Edward R. Murrow and other people who were not Republicans stood up to him. But even though Joe McCarthy died a few years later, a lonely drunk in a room with his remote control and his iPhone, right, tweeting out shit in 1957.
That's what he was doing, yeah.
1957. Roy Cohn was a young guy in his mid-20s in the early 1950s. Young guy. This is almost not his first gig, but very close.
Roy Cohn never seemed like a young guy. He looked like he was born 40, you know?
Stephen Miller, hello.
Yeah, that's
hello.
Right. You're
okay.
Right.
All right. So Roy Cohn had all these years in front of him, and lo and behold, he ends up in social circles and becomes acquainted with Donald Trump and starts to defend Donald Trump and Trump's father in some famous housing discrimination cases in the 70s in New York against the U.S. Justice Department, and uses Roy Cohn, Joe McCarthy tactics, and actually demands that the federal government apologize to the Trumps for daring to tell the truth about the fact that they didn't want to rent to black people in New York and all that. So Roy Cohn, the worst of the worst. And so you get Joe McCarthy, Roy Cohn, Donald Trump to today, Donald Trump to Kevin McCarthy via Marjorie Taylor Greene,
because we'll get
and
there.
The voters,
sure,
right? And so but I think that Kevin McCarthy and Joe, it's a coincidence that they have the same last name. I don't think that there's any actual relationship there. That being said, while I'm going down this rabbit hole of nothingness, because it doesn't mean anything, somebody pointed out that Ted Cruz and Joe McCarthy look very similar. And it took me 1/1000th of a second on Google on the photos to find a side-by-side of the two of them. And it's eerie. It's creepy. All right, that's two. That's two there. Here's the third one. Came up at lunch today, and we were talking about the Wayne Lee Ray conundrum. The Wayne Lee Ray conundrum, which has been very popular here on the Brad and Britt cast, and on the Brad and Britt show, and on the Brad and Ralph show, and other earlier iterations. where we have pointed out, courtesy of Bill Morris, former columnist for the Greensboro News and Record, that a disproportionate number of people, men and women, who are accused of crimes, do terrible things, often have the middle name of Wayne, Lee, or Ray. We expanded it and said, it doesn't have to be the first name. It can be the last name, and it can be derivations of that name. It can be Ray Sean or Dwayne. Yeah. Right. And it turns out that the guy down in Florida, the porn guy who killed the FBI agents and then I guess killed himself, he's a Lee.
Yeah.
Middle name is Lee. And now he has the double curse of being Florida man and a Lee. Right?
Jeez, they must just book you a cell. If you're a Florida guy and your name, you've got a Lee in there, you're just done, right?
One more. Ready? This is almost a North Carolina thing only, and we'll explain it in a moment. Ready? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Blanche Taylor Moore. Blanche Taylor Moore was a serial murderer in North Carolina who is the oldest death row inmate. She's about 85 now, and 30 years ago, she was convicted of poisoning some men in her life. She would
played by Elizabeth Montgomery in the TV movie, correct?
The TV movie. But she would put arsenic, I think, in their pudding. I think that was her preferred method of killing.
Would you like to tell the story about how you were called for some pretrial hearings regarding one of those cases?
Not really. It doesn't go anywhere because I didn't have to go, and I never was really a part of it. But
I thought you showed up and then they didn't call you or something.
I know, but it's bad enough that I'm just pointing out the. And by the way, this could be the beginning of some kind of gigantic conspiracy theory, don't you think?
It could be a massive conspiracy theory. Yes, Marjorie.
Right. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, Blanche
Taylor Moore.
Taylor Moore. All right.
We had many years ago the Peterson conundrum. There seemed to be a bunch of people named Peterson.
Yeah.
The Peterson guy in Durham.
There was like five Scott Petersons, right?
There was a Scott Peterson, of course, who killed that Lacey, that poor girl, drowned her in California. And then there was a Peterson guy, I think Scott Peterson up in Chicago, who was a cop who allegedly murdered his wife, and maybe more than one. So there was a Peterson problem a few years ago. So you may be onto something. Yeah. I hope that you are prepared to apologize to Marjorie Taylor Greene. There was a vote of the House Republicans last night, Brad, and she was embraced. And she said to them that the stuff that she said was before she became a congresswoman. Kevin McCarthy, by the way, who you just referenced, said, it's fine by me as long as she said that stuff before she became a congresswoman. Once she took that oath of office, the clock starts over. Additionally, Marjorie Taylor Greene went on the House floor today and made a speech where she passionately said such controversial things such as 9/11 is real, it really did happen, and also school shootings are real, they really did happen. Brad, I hope you're able to look down in your soul and apologize to this woman who you have beleaguered and slandered for the past week or so, because she obviously has turned over a new leaf in her life, Brad.
All right. Everyone's lying. Not one person is telling the truth. At least a quarter of the Republicans in that secret meeting voted on her side. Okay. They voted on her side.
And I'm told
by voting against Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
But it was a secret vote, so none of it matters. It's irrelevant. And you know what, Britt? Can I just say this? We're a day past this story now, and we're already to they're demanding that Trump testify. That is the breaking story right now.
Which we'll get to.
Right.
But when Marjorie Taylor Greene rose to speak on the House floor, at least half of the Republicans on the House floor gave her a standing ovation.
Right. And
that happened today.
I mean, they painted themselves into this corner and have fun in the corner. Okay, you own it. She's all yours. They are the QAnon party. They're the we're afraid of Donald Trump party. She's already been in contact with Donald Trump. She apparently has his backing because he's still a suicide bomber.
So does Kevin McCarthy. I mean, Kevin McCarthy was summoned down.
McCarthy, they all have no courage. They all, I hate to use the old, they hate America. They really do. Because I think
they hate Americans. I think that's for sure.
If you loved America, you would not be a part of this. And you know how full of shit they are because they're playing major league whataboutism.
Oh, they're trying.
Right. What about Ilhan Omar? We're going to stop her from being on committees if you stop Marjorie Taylor Greene from being on committees. Yeah, and you know what the difference is?
That's going nowhere.
Right. Would you like to know the difference between these two? What the difference is? Ilhan Omar, when she does anti-Semitic, inexcusable shit, she does apologize, and then she gets a vote of the whole House to say what she said sucked. Okay. And correct. she gets swatted down, and that's the end of it. Okay. And she is not as much as the right wingers and the right wing media and conservatives like to think. The Squad doesn't run the Democratic caucus, doesn't order Nancy Pelosi around, as opposed to Marjorie Taylor Greene and QAnon. They order Kevin McCarthy and the Republicans in the House around. They control the game right now. So there is no comparison. And I know that that's all they've got is whataboutism, but it's not working. It's absolutely not going to work. And they're imploding, and good luck. Have a nice life. Get a new brand, change the call letters, do something, get a new format. Yeah.
It's too late at this point. This is a part of the speech. National Review has part of what Liz Cheney said to everybody last night. We cannot become the party of QAnon. We cannot become the party of Holocaust denial. We cannot become the party of white supremacy.
Well, sorry, but you are.
The ship has sailed.
Right.
If you asked America, you've had average American voter. I don't know what you want to say, the median age 43 or whatever. If you want to just say which party is associated with this, and you put a Confederate flag up, what do you think they would say?
It's not a contest anymore.
What would you say? I mean, it's too late. The embracing of Confederate statues, just that right there, just the furor over having Confederate statues taken down, and how the Republican Party was so adamant that history cannot be erased. That to me is that's the only issue you need to know here, and you can't get yourself out of this rut. It's not possible.
And it's possible to look at this right now with some detachment as a historical inevitability. Because if you go back to Barry Goldwater in 1964, The Conscience of a Conservative, that was the name of his book, and somebody wrote I think Jeff Flake wrote a book about 5 years and used the same title. Okay, because
unironically, because he's got no sense.
Well, he does actually. He is the one. He is the one who said, fuck you, Trump. I'm not in, and he's washed up now in Arizona. Although you know what, it could be time for him to make a comeback. Who knows? But the point is, when Goldwater started in '64 and got swamped, everybody thought, that's the end of conservatism. But when Dick Nixon and Roger Ailes, 4 years later, just 4 short years later, figured out that we can do all of these things more subtly. We can fine tune it. We don't have to say we're not going to allow black people to vote anymore. We're not going to do that because they already passed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act in 64, 65. So it was already the law. But lots of people, particularly white people in the South, they didn't like that. They didn't like that at all. So what did Nixon and Roger Ailes, and by the way, George Wallace, of course, what did they come up with? And by the way, Wallace was the one that came up with the phrase law and order. And everybody knew what law and order was.
Yeah, keeping those uppity blacks down. That's what that means.
Cracking down on the blacks.
That's what that means.
All right. So 1968, that's now already 52 years ago. So just follow the breadcrumbs forward through different Republican presidents who hedged it, who faked it. The only one with any degree of integrity who wasn't playing it was Jerry Ford. I mean, Jerry Ford was not a guy who ever ran a racist campaign or a dog whistle campaign.
And how did that work?
Right.
Well, he probably would have lost in 76.
Yeah, anyway. I don't think that's why he lost.
It doesn't matter.
That little pardon thing.
Yeah.
Somebody pardoned somebody who did something, right?
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Yeah. So, you go to Reagan, who was a master at it, and he did it with a smile.
He did.
He did it all with a smile.
He put down the blacks with a smile.
He
would also do a thing, and the people in his party, this was very smart, where he would go against some of the radical elements in his party sometimes, like the Jesse Helms, by throwing a little bone to folks by passing a Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, for example, where Jesse Helms was against it, which made him look, it made him look like he was okay. Right. So made him look like he was on the side of progressives.
Right. So you were able to make the argument. How could Ronald Reagan be racist if?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Which is equivalent to, how is there any racism and how is there any white privilege if Barack Obama got elected president? Right. It's the same. It's the same nonsensical argument. It doesn't mean anything. Yeah.
All that Ronald Reagan had to do was be less racist than Jesse Helms and Strom Thurmond, which he was able to clear that very low bar, even at his advanced age. And he looked like he was, oh my God, how could you say we're the big tent party and all this other horse shit?
And by the way, I'm glad you threw the name Jesse Helms in there, because he's kind of a bridge between the 50s and 60s and well into the 80s and 90s. And thanks to some of his handiwork, we're where we are today also. So you get Reagan, and we move all the way through to George W. Bush. George W. Bush was also a smiling guy. But remember, it was always about trying to make sure that not too many people were voting. Right. But that didn't get turbocharged until about 10 years ago, when a couple of the Supreme Court rulings essentially said there's no more discrimination. We don't need states to have to answer to the federal government in terms of how they set up their electoral process, because there can't be voter suppression anymore, because we've just declared there isn't any. It all happened.
I don't need to wear the seatbelt anymore because it's kept me safe. So I'm just going to stop wearing the seatbelt. We don't need it anymore.
Right.
That's essentially what these guys did.
So if you look at the last 5-6 years of Trump, who laid the groundwork for himself with the most racist thing maybe in our lifetime that will ever occur, which is claiming that the then current president wasn't even an American citizen and was born in a foreign country and had faked his birth certificate. The fact that was the foundation for Donald Trump's political career. It just flat out was.
Help me out with the history of this, though. Back in the 50s and 60s, those John Birch Society people, they were elevated to a certain extent, but then at some point, the Republican Party did marginalize those people and said, go away, right? And they weren't given political power, correct?
That's a myth.
Okay.
I think it was a superficial myth. Yes, maybe in public that, we can't be associated with that. But if you don't think for 1 second, I mean, look up the racial attitudes really of William F. Buckley, the great principled conservative. If we could just get back to the principles of Buckley: smaller government, lower taxes, strong defense, anti-communism, anti-Putin. If Buckley was around today, but underneath it all, we're better than them. Whites need to run this country. Blacks, you're just here still as guests. You were invited in guests because we strapped you to slave ships and brought you over for a couple of centuries, but you're still not fully equal to us. And by the way, I don't know if I haven't read anything about it, but I saw a package on it last night on ABC and ESPN that we have a couple of NFL players, 2 black NFL retired players who are making the case, and they've got documents. There's a lot of research. They didn't just make this up out of thin air, that the NFL is discriminating in the way they are adjudicating all of the cases about CTE and helping players after they retire. And they literally have the documentation to say that the NFL for decades would say, we don't have to pay as much to blacks in retirement because they start out from a lower intelligence level. So it's difficult to measure how much brain damage they've had because their brains aren't as good to begin with. It's hard to measure that. So
even if you're a rich black person in this country, you can get screwed. That's nice.
Yes. Yeah.
That's nice. This is a 1957 editorial that was penned by William F. Buckley called "Why the South Must Prevail." He declared the white race the more advanced race, and as such, the most fit to govern. This was printed material in 1957, which I believe is the same year that Strom Thurmond gave that massive filibuster in the United States Senate.
But didn't the Braves win the World Series that year?
It was the Milwaukee Braves were your world champions. That's exactly right. It was Henry Aaron and Lou Burdette, I believe, were the big stars of your Milwaukee Braves in 1957. So yes,
there was this old phrase they had. It was called "spawn and sane," and what the fuck is the rain? I think that's what people used to say.
They said at all. That's not.
They were the two pitchers, Warren Spahn and Johnny Sane, and then they go, "What the fuck is the rain?"
So the Republican Party, proving that they are the big tent, said that Liz Cheney can stay in leadership of the party for now, and everything is fine. We're all together, and everybody is one big happy family. And why don't you guys shut up about this? Because there's no problem.
Okay,
there's no issue.
You want to talk about buying time, meaning about 12 hours, as they try to do, because on Thursday there will be a public vote, and they'll have to go on the record. And a lot of these people who easily voted for Liz Cheney because in their hearts they know that was the right thing to do, in public they can't support Liz Cheney. They have to vote for Marjorie Taylor Greene and say that she shouldn't be sanctioned by anybody, that there's freedom of speech. What about the First Amendment? What about the fact that she said these things mostly before she became a congressperson, which, by the way, matches up perfectly with Trumpism, which is all the shit that Donald Trump did before he became president. Well, we can't decide he shouldn't be president because he's a criminal, because he's a rapist, because he did all. Okay, so now we get a clean slate the day Trump takes the presidency. Then he starts doing more shit while he's president. Well, but we can't count that because he's Donald Trump. And we don't want to piss off the people who blindly support Donald Trump, who are idiots, because they also vote for us in congressional elections. So we will let him off the hook for trying to screw over Joe Biden in 2019. Okay, you get a free pass. And remember, the election is going to decide whether Donald Trump was guilty or not from last year. So there was an election, and the election results say that the American people decided that Donald Trump was guilty. They didn't reelect him. Well, now time to say goodbye to Donald Trump. But no, he incites a riot to try to overturn the entire United States government and become Vladimir Putin, president for life. And now we can't do anything about it because he's not president anymore. But wait a minute. You said you couldn't impeach him the last week he was in office. You needed to wait until afterwards, till he left, and then do it. Now you're saying we can't do it? Okay. The gig is up. The Republican Party is being exposed minute by minute for what it is. It is a criminal enterprise. I would go so far. And by the way, if the Canadians could call the Proud Boys a terrorist organization, we can too, but I think we should call the Republican Party a terrorist organization. They're not a political party. They are not for the rights and the freedoms enumerated in the Constitution. They want full power all the time. They do not want to share power. They want to be able to always maintain control, and they will do whatever it takes. They will actually say that the election didn't count. The votes didn't count. Oh, by the way, and most of the time, it's black votes that didn't count. So we're all the way back to 1787 when the Constitution came out.
I would just remind you that 3 months ago, that same party was able to gain some seats in the House of Representatives. So
I understand that.
Hang
on. But remember, that was also very much helped by the gerrymandering and the local versions of voting suppression that went on. And I don't think for 1 second now that it's a couple months later that if you look back, wow, there was really a groundswell for Republican policies. They just didn't quite like Trump enough. I don't think that's what was going on. I don't think that's what was going on. So if you read and you see this all, the Republicans, they really think they're going to take everything back in 2022 if they just play their cards right here. Right? That's what this is all about. It's about 2022. They're looking ahead. They don't want to look back. Too bad. That's not how it works. Hey, I murdered 5 people. Ah, fuck it. Let's look ahead. Okay. Those people are dead already. I don't need to be on trial. Yeah.
I think with all the dirty tricks and everything, I think they're closer to maybe their reality than we think. I mean, we'd like to think that they're washed up and they're dead, and they are disjointed right now, and they're certainly on the rocks. but they may be closer to getting it back than they think. They could be one issue away from doing something incredibly stupid that's going to somehow capture the hearts and minds of some real dummies. I mean, I always wonder about this stuff.
Oh, no, hey, look, you can't go broke being paranoid about things like that. And remember, we were certainly, and I think rightfully so, paranoid leading up to November 3rd every day. We never came on this podcast or Brad and Britt live cast, seen on YouTube and other great platforms all around the world. We never said, "Oh, it's in the bag, it's over. Let's measure the drapes. Let's do all this," because you never knew what they were going to be able to pull off. And I think that's the miracle of 2020 in November, that all those obstacles were overcome. That was that was people power. That was people power across the country. And then, boy, to stamp it with what happened in Georgia, less than 2 months later, was incredible. That was incredible. I mean, you look, we don't live in Georgia, but we live pretty close by.
Yeah,
we're close enough to Georgia, and we get it. And if the lessons in Georgia can be spread out across the country, and I know they're talking about this. I know Democrats are really, really, they're almost obsessed with learning the lessons of the mobilization that went on there. And I think the Democratic view is, with those ideas in mind and the voter self-suppression that went on in Georgia among white people, because Donald Trump told them that his election was stolen from him, and therefore, why should you vote in the senatorial elections in early January? That was his message. It didn't matter that he came down there, once or twice, and for 2 minutes out of his 2.5 hour harangues would say, "You have to go out and vote," right? That wasn't going to punch through. That meant nothing, because the body language of Republicans across the country was in support of Trump, that the election was stolen from Trump. And to this day, right, are they still at 75% think that Joe Biden was not duly elected? Republicans, they still that high up? They still don't think he was the real president? Because that's pretty weird, because Biden has approval ratings, in the upper 50s. So how is that possible?
Here's a
lot of people think he's not a legitimate president, but he's doing a good job.
Here's a funny thing. They had one of the polls that I saw, and it was the Pod Save America guys who did this. There are even people within the Republican Party who do not believe that Joe Biden won the election who agree with his policies. If you just present them to them, not as being a Joe Biden policy.
Yeah, it's another way of putting it. Sure.
If you just present the policy and say, "Do you agree with this, and this help for these people, and that these people should get more money for," and they go, "Yes." So they believe that he's not legitimately president, but they do agree with his policies.
Well, that's an extension of the Obamacare research from 10 years ago, which is, do you think it'd be a good idea if kids could stay on health insurance till 26? Do you think that it would be a good idea if you couldn't be excluded from getting health insurance for pre-existing conditions? Oh, yeah, those are good ideas. And you'd say, okay, you got 70% approval of that. Then go back and say, Obamacare contains all the 30% approval. Don't like it. Hate it. Worst idea ever. It's so
This happened in Kentucky, where I think they had at least some of the infrastructure for Obamacare was set up. Where I used to get mail because I was on Obamacare, and it would come from Kentucky. And they would sign people up. It was called Bluegrass Care or whatever it was called. People would go in the office, they'd sign up. They go, "Well, here's your deal under Bluegrass Care." And there was like some people that would say to them, "Well, it's a hell of a lot better deal than Obamacare." And they kind of wink at them. That's what they would do. This happened all the time.
Yeah, the power of marketing, huh?
It's the craziest thing. Impeachment managers have called on Donald John Trump Sr., Brad, the 45th president of these United States, to testify before his Senate trial. And the House manager, Miss Raskin, I believe her name is, has sent a letter.
That's Jamie Raskin. That's a man.
Oh, it's a dude. Okay. Well, Mr. Raskin has said that he wants a deadline of 5 o'clock.
Jesus, God, you just killed your credibility there, Britt. Pull it back in. Come on, bring it back. God damn it. Jesus Christ.
Get it right.
Oh, I miss in the morning.
Jamie Raskin has set a 5 o'clock deadline for Friday for Donald John Trump Sr. to respond, saying that, you were so busy when you were president, I could see how you wouldn't have time to come and testify before your first impeachment trial, but you got a lot of free time on your hands for impeachment too. Why don't you come here and present your case, which is, of course, that you have the right to free speech? Do you think there's any way that Donald Trump, without any sort of platform like Twitter, he has to come and testify because he just loves the spotlight so much, doesn't he, Brad?
We think that. We know that a year ago, in the first impeachment trial, that the lawyers that he had, who were, I think it's fair to say, substantially more qualified than the group that he has now. All right. Well, even though I don't think that was a top tier panel back then in 2019, 2020, but they were adamant in saying, do not even think about it. And they were adamant in saying, do not talk to Robert Mueller. Do not talk to Robert Mueller. Now, the problem, of course, during the Mueller investigation was that Robert Mueller did not push hard at all to get Trump to talk to them. And had he pushed harder, it's very likely that Trump would have had to have done that. But
I think they had to stop him because I think he considered it a couple of times. Right. They were like, no. Hold up.
All right. So now he's not president anymore. He's just a citizen.
Right. And truly no one gives a shit about him now. There is no gravy train to ride right now except for those stupid kids of his.
Well, I wouldn't say no one gives a shit about him because he still has control of one of the two, how should we say it, major. He has control of the minor party in this country still.
No one is invested in stopping him from making idiotic mistakes that will ruin his life. Is what I'm trying to say. There's no investment.
That's a perfect question. What if you're his stupid kids now? Because it's different when he was president than it is now. He's just dopey dad.
Yeah.
Who you can't tell him what to do. You can't tell him anything because he thinks he knows more than everybody. But I think he, at some level, he can be compelled to testify. But I think in Jamie Raskin's letter, he made it very, very clear that, and again, this is not a criminal trial. This is an impeachment trial. It's different. The rules are different.
You're not going to lose your liberty is what's going to happen. In a regular trial, you have a chance that you could lose your freedom and your liberty and be incarcerated.
Right. And I think, and we're not lawyers, didn't go to law school, but I think that if someone does not testify in a criminal trial, in other words, kind of invokes a figurative Fifth Amendment, I'm not going to go and I'm not testifying against myself. You're not allowed to actually hold that against the person. Okay. Right. Now, in this case, in Raskin's letter, he's saying right now, hey, fuckface von Clownstick, listen closely. If you refuse to show up, that will be Exhibit A in admitting your guilt.
That makes sense.
He's essentially saying that. Now, again, we can say that, we can understand that, we get it. And then you go, well, is that going to convince the Republicans to convict him? That the fact that he didn't show up is really kind of proof that he has so much to hide and can't explain him? And they'll say, well, no, because there shouldn't have been an impeachment in the first place. They're going to stick to that, it looks like, until the end. But I think this crap with Marjorie Taylor Greene and QAnon, on the margins, on the edges, that really starts to squeeze what's going on here. It ups the price of acquittal, I think, for all remaining Republicans, every one of them. I mean, look, whoever is the ad agency that's cranking out these ads, that they're 30 seconds long, and they include at the end the localized version of the name of your local Republican congressman, and they're already produced and they're already running around the country, that show clips from the riot and Trump imploring people to go down there to the Capitol and do it.
You can't get over it.
They're ready-made and they're already running. Okay, we're only in February following an election. We're almost 2 years away from the next election, and they're about to vote, apparently, to not convict. And it's really entertaining to talk about the thought that Trump might get up there and your idea that he cannot resist.
I don't think he can.
Being the center of attention right now. You can't discount that. There's no way I'm saying, oh, there's no way. He's too smart. He knows that it's not in his best interest to get up there and get grilled by some very skilled prosecutors, because a lot of these Democrats, Jamie Raskin himself and his twin sister, Jamie.
Yeah, both of them.
Both of them. Wait.
Look, I'm not into gender assignment. Okay.
He was a prosecutor for 23 years before he became a law professor. You don't think he knows his shit? I was wondering a year ago why he wasn't given more of a lead role. And Adam Schiff obviously did a fantastic job. And so, okay. And it works out here because I think Raskin is going to be, he's going to be spot on. And if Trump has these clowns defending him and then decides to get up there and testify himself, I think that just heightens the price that will be paid if you acquit this guy. He will be the worst witness ever. He will be the whataboutism witness on me. You can't say that to me. What about you? That's what he'll do, right?
It is.
Well, he'll try to change the subject. I mean, we've seen him in press conferences. We've seen him talking more than any other president in our life. All the other ones put together, we haven't heard them talk as much in public as we've heard Trump. And we know his patterns. We know how he thinks. We know how he answers. We know how he can't take a tough question without, by the way, he can't do it like he would do at his press conference. Thank you very much. And he'd walk away.
Go away, yeah.
Can't do that on the stand. Thank you very much. Can't do it.
I think Lindsey Graham is going to end up being like an unofficial consultant to those guys, and it's going to be just a nightmare trying to fix whatever shitty defense that they're coming up with.
There is no defense.
No, it's freedom of speech, Brad. That's the defense.
No, yes, you have the right to defend yourself, but when you have no defense, you'd be better off cutting a deal. Okay,
that's true.
But he couldn't come up with the cojones or the smarts to do that. So,
Smartmatic, an election technology company, has followed through on a threat to sue the parent company of Fox News over comments made on the network suggesting the company participated in fraudulent activities during the November 3rd presidential election. This is a $2.7 billion lawsuit filed in the New York State Court in Manhattan. Fox News is named specifically. Maria Bartiromo, Lou Dobbs, and Janine Pirro were directly named in the suit, along with Fox News guest Sidney Powell, who is also facing a separate $1.3 billion lawsuit from the company already, and also Rudolph Giuliani. Brad, looks like these people are in a heap big trouble.
Yeah, and would you like to know what the whataboutism is on that story?
What is the turnaround on that?
I haven't read this anywhere, but I can tell you what the whataboutism on that story is. Well, what about the lawsuit against the New York Times by Sarah Palin? That could be way more important than this. And actually, that's true. The Sarah Palin that she was defamed by the New York Times in an editorial is unbelievable that it's gotten this far. But you have to watch both of them. But I think, again, this feels like a slam dunk because all the things that they're saying that were said on Fox were said on Fox, and there are recordings of it. Or as they like to say on TV, there's tape of it. No, there's no tape. There's no tape.
Well, this is why that Bob Sellers guy walks off the set of that Newsmax deal with Mike Lindell just the other day, because he knows that these people have really good lawyers. They're going to sue the shit out of everybody. And stop, Mike, stop.
And by the way, just walking off the set, that doesn't change anything. You didn't stop a lawsuit. You didn't. It's too. You know what? They may as well just go all in with it now. They're already getting. They can't get sued again for the same thing.
Yeah, they can't be double sued. I mean, there's going to be essentially there's going to be some sort of. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Fox is going to end up with a settlement. I don't know if they just pay out sexual harassment claims or if they also pay off these. Yeah.
A couple billion is not quite the same as 20 million. Even I know that.
Even you're aware.
Not a genius here. So good luck to them. But you know what? When Fox is hurting, we're all hurting here in the media business.
That's what's wrong. Yes.
And so we need to stand up with our brothers. And
there's freedom. Again, it's freedom of speech, just like the president is saying in his defense. The Fox has a freedom of speech to say completely incorrect things about a company and slander them. I mean, they've got They've got the right to do that
it.
sort of thing. Batshit crazy Congresswoman Nancy Mace from the great state of South Carolina is calling Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez a liar. AOC saying that she was only 2 doors down from where AOC was during the insurrection riots on January the 6th, and there was really no problem, and I don't know what AOC is talking about, and she should probably just shut up. That's the Nancy Mace statement today, Brad. That AOC has made the entire thing up.
She made the whole thing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even with many, many witnesses and all people all over the place who can verify all of these things. And of course, she said, no, that's not what the thing is.
Okay, but what's the point? Does that prove that Donald Trump didn't incite the riot? See, that's the point. That's the point.
Oh, something happened, but they just exaggerated it.
And by the way, I haven't looked all morning at Fox. I haven't, but yesterday and last night, apparently they're they always find a story and become obsessed with it, and it's everything. It's the most important thing in your life if you're a Fox watcher, and it's not about what's going on. If you're a political person, it's not about what's going on with the Republican Party and Marjorie Taylor Greene and the bullshit of kicking her out and all the. That's not a Fox story, Britt. You know what the big Fox story is?
What's that?
John Kerry wastes a lot of fuel flying around on a private jet.
Well, we're doing that again?
Britt, that is the only story that matters. It's the only. He's a hypocrite. How can he talk about climate change? Stop with the private jet. You have, Britt, I swear to you, that's all they talk about there. That's all that matters. Now, is John Kerry a perfect person? No. Is he a patrician? Yes. Did he marry someone with the last name Hines, as in ketchup, as in a lot of money, more than you and I will ever? Yes. Is the fact that he flies around on a private jet obnoxious? Does it waste fuel? Yes. Does it matter? No. That's just the way it is. But you want to talk about the shiny object of the day? As far as I could tell, that's been it. And when is Joe Biden going to resign because John Kerry flies around on a jet? Right.
But this would always be what they would level this stuff at Al Gore when he was out preaching about the environment and stuff, and he's flying on a private jet and all this carbon is being released. They would do this. They do this shit all the time. Yeah. President Trump is resigning from the Screen Actors Guild.
They already kicked him out. That's bullshit. They were already suspending him. They were already going to toss him.
The former president's letter of resignation on Wednesday comes after the SAG-AFTRA board voted overwhelmingly that Trump violated the union's membership guidelines in the wake of the Capitol riot. And they said it evoked a two-word, the resignation evoked a two-word response from SAG-AFTRA, which was, thank you. Very similar to Trump's thank you, as he leaves the press conference. So yes, no more SAG-AFTRA and Donald Trump, Brad. I don't know if the actors union is ever going to be as good again, to be honest with you. If you've lost Donald Trump, you've lost a lot of strength, and you had a huge friend in that guy.
But the most important part of this is that you've been shunned, sir. Yeah. You are persona non grata. And you are persona non grata in a lot of the areas where you pretended while you were president were just made up of a rich Hollywood, overeducated Ivy League, often Jew, elites, right? But you craved their acceptance, but you pretended that they were the fake news. You pretended that they were against you all the time. And you know what? You're kind of half right. They were against you. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people held their fire until you left office. And now you've left office. And you have no defense against this. I mean, we talked about this constantly. The main reason Donald Trump wanted to be reelected wasn't to be president for another 4 years. It was because of the legal shield that he had, both literally and figuratively, from all kinds of actions taken against him for his entire life, for the behavior that has gone on in public and in private for all of these years. He got a 4-year reprieve, and he wanted that next 4 years of reprieve. It clearly wasn't to continue to be president because he didn't do anything. They got a tax cut, and Mitch McConnell was taking care of getting the judges through. Trump wasn't doing anything. He'd already made every foreign trip he was ever going to make. Imagine the second 4-year term. He couldn't go anywhere.
Oh my God!
Even if he would have been reelected, where was he going to go? Another trip back to Club St. North Korea? No, you can't go to these places. So we, as bad as things are right now, in terms of the trash he left behind, it's almost unimaginable what these 4 years would have been like. And that's not to say that Joe Biden is already George Washington, that he isn't going to make mistakes, that there aren't things that you can honorably disagree with him on. Whatever he's doing on immigration, it's going to be a tough road, because it was easy under Trump. Hell, we fucking closed the borders. We stopped people from coming in so we didn't have an immigration problem. Well, we became the asshole country, right? For 4 years. So now we're not the asshole country anymore. And with that comes, some bad apples are going to come rolling in here. And there is going to be a murder of somebody somewhere by someone who is an illegal immigrant. It's going to happen. And that's going to turn into, see, Donald Trump was right. You can see, that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
You absolutely know that's going to happen. But whatever is happening now could only be 1,000th of how horrible things would get if Trump was still the president. I mean, it feels to me like a ton of progress is being made on addressing the coronavirus and the vaccine distribution, as difficult as it is for anybody, with the new iterations of it going around. I mean, it's really complicated. But no matter what's going on, you do feel that the people who are on top of this are the people who should be on top of it, not fucking Dr. Scott Atlas, okay? Right. We don't have fucking Dr. Scott Atlas anymore running the show. And just based on that, we're light years ahead. Now, clearly, you and I, and it's all personal for us, we want Trump to testify.
That's true.
Just because clearly, we need another week of comedy. Right?
Well, America deserves it. I got to be honest with you.
Deserves it. It's been tough, and we'll have Super Bowl letdown next week.
That's right.
And we need something to fill the gap. And now that all the award shows suck because they're just virtual, and they're going to be virtual probably all year, right? Nobody's going to do that.
That's right.
Trump testifying, that's just going to be. It's like a post-game show that's actually good. Okay. Yeah. Who ever watched a post-game show after the football? Nobody. But this will be a good post-game show because it'll be so bizarre. And let's hope he takes the invitation and decides to come and explain himself. Tell America that what you said, you didn't say. Tell America again that whatever you thought was inciting a riot and violence, you were just joking. Tell us again, one more time. Play the "you have no sense of humor" card. Mm-hmm. Come on, let's see it. I've missed it, haven't you?
Oh, big time.
I've really missed that kind of just horrendous horse shit. And we'll sweat out the weekend here. All right, we have 30 seconds to go. They're yelling at us. The next show is coming on. Super Bowl prediction. Britt Whitmire, go.
Chiefs. Can't stand Tom Brady. I hope he sucks.
Did they cover?
What's the spread? I don't know.
It's 3.5. I think it's 3.
I think they'll cover that.
All right.
I think they can make that happen. What about you?
Bad news. Brady.
Oh, come on.
Brady.
All right. We're done.
We're through.
I'm watching Wives with Knives on the